The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Go Cowboys! This is Media Mash,
a roundtable of Cowboys insiders
dropping wisdom
and offering sizzling takes
on the current state of your Dallas Cowboys.
Now, your host,
Newy Scruggs.
Media Mash! That's right. Tuesday. Cowboys are off. But there's still Cowboy issues to talk about because we've got a trade. And let's dive into it with John Machota of The Athletic. It's Patrik Walker of DallasCowboys.com. All right, gentlemen, give fans the whole lowdown on Johnathan Hankins, defensive tackle from the Raiders. They traded a 7th-round pick to him in his 10th year. Go ahead, Mr. Walker.
6'3", 340 pounds of football-playing human. Cowboys know him well from his years spent with the New York Giants. Former draft pick of the Giants, had one short stay, 1 year in Indianapolis en route to Las Vegas, where he's been the past couple of seasons. 30 starts in the 2 previous seasons. He's been active in 5 games. And you wanted a big body to drop in front of that in that defensive line to help stop the run. Johnathan Hankins is hopefully going to be that guy for Dan Quinn in this defense. They're going up against the Bears offense that put up almost 250 yards rushing in the blowout of the New England Patriots. I have no doubt that Jerry Jones and company saw that and were like, well, we were already talking with Vegas about doing it, pull the trigger. And so here we are. There we go.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that jumped out to me is at the beginning of when you see this come down is, all right, Neville Gallimore just was inactive on Sunday. Mm-hmm. What does this mean for Neville Gallimore? And I'll say this, just from people that I've been in contact with in the last couple hours, this is a run-stopping DN, so I don't know that it necessarily means, oh, Neville Gallimore is out. I know fans have been like tweeting stuff like that, oh, this must be what he's going to be a first, second down player, Johnathan Hankins is. Neville Gallimore is paid to get after the passer. Interesting that he was inactive for the game. Certainly an interesting storyline there to monitor as we go forward. But Hankins is here to, and here's the thing: like he's not even a guy that's going to get you a bunch of sacks or a bunch of run stops, stuff like that. He's going to eat up blockers, let your linebackers run free. He's going to be a guy that really does the dirty work. That's why you add a guy like that. And then frankly, I'm not one of these big. Oh, the value of a 6th, 7th round pick, I don't care.
Yeah, no, those are flyers.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, they can hit. Maybe you get a Quentin Bohanna, and I'm not going to.
Donovan Wilson.
Yeah, but I'm not, okay. And you can go ahead and put those names over here.
Yeah,
and then,
you're right.
And then I'll put the names over there that I'm not going to mention right now because I don't want to call guys out. But there's a lot more on this list than there is over there.
Yeah, the exception is not the rule.
And if this guy's going to help you right away with the only weakness you have on defense for what is arguably the best defense in the league. I think it's a great move. And you know what I wonder, too, is, a lot of people are going to say, oh, when he was at the Raiders, his play started to drop off. They might have been playing him too much for the Raiders. He's going to be on a rotation here. He ain't going to be asked to do as much as he probably was there.
And that's key. And I love that you said that, John, because in the write-up that I did today on the Johnathan Hankins move, I specifically noted that because he's coming into a defensive line that has so much depth on the interior, he's not going to be asked to do what he was asked to do in his early years with New York and potentially with the Raiders over the past couple of years. He doesn't need a ton of snaps. He's a 1 or 2 down guy. You get in there, you get him to plug the run, you get him out of there. And it's unrelated to Neville Gallimore for the reasons John said, but also I get from a fan standpoint, they're looking at the timing of it. They're saying, well, Neville Gallimore was inactive, what's going on? And then a few days later, trade for Johnathan Hankins. But keep this in mind, the Cowboys signed Carlos Watkins from the practice squad to the active roster because Dan Quinn and Mike McCarthy wanted to beef up the run defense.
Gotcha.
So that in and of itself lets you know that they were kind of hinting at trying to do something here. Johnathan Hankins is in that lane, not in a lane that pushes Neville Gallimore out. And Stephen Jones did say that there was and Mike McCarthy kind of doubled down on it, there was a little bit of a health issue that cropped up on Neville Gallimore. He was medically cleared, but with whatever the issue was, it was a less than 100% Neville Gallimore versus a 100% Tristan Hill. They went with Tristan Hill against the line.
So then we see the Twitter. Took a whole bunch of Cowboy stuff off his Twitter page. Do we read into that?
His Avi is still Cowboys. Still has his he's in his Cowboys uniform in his Avi. I mean, if he wanted to go full Kyler Murray, I don't think he would have stopped short of changing the Avi. You know what I mean? And I'm not one of those.
Probably got some other pictures.
Right, and that's fair. And I'm not one of those that puts much of any stock in what athletes do with their bios and they deleted this and they who cares?
I do, because we know there's a lot of guys who
and I'll say this in John Machota's voice. You take those people and you put them over here, and I can tell you, and there's a whole other group of people that don't utilize Twitter in that way, and they just make some changes. I don't track down the Twitter sphere and say, oh, what might this mean? I'm not going to Scooby-Doo it around like that. We'd rather just kind of work the back channels and see what's actually going on. And again, I don't think Neville would have stopped short of. And I love what Steven said as far as hopefully throwing some cold water on it when he was speaking to 105.3 FM The Fan. This guy's wonderful employer, Kevin Gray, when he said that he was mentioning Neville Gallimore, he said it was a health issue that kind of cropped up, and quote, I wouldn't read into it, end quote.
Mike McCarthy, though, later on the day, said coach's decision.
He did.
So
right.
That was interesting.
Which kind of goes to the, less than 100% Neville versus 100%
I mean, it certainly goes back to that practice in Denver.
The timing of it, I get how fans, how the dots could be connected.
When he said publicly, I didn't know about this altitude and how he was out of breath and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden it was then he's playing, or you're sitting there, fourth preseason game or third preseason game, and just why is Neville Gallimore still out here in the fourth quarter? You could just tell that they weren't happy with what they were getting from him.
So it was, and I can't remember what day it was on the Players Lounge that I asked everybody, name me a guy you need more from. Mm-hmm. And Neville Gallimore was the guy. And it would kind of I was the only one who said it. It was kind of, okay. And I was like, right now, if you're trying to beat the Cowboys, you're saying to yourself, how do you run the ball? Mm-hmm. And they're trying to fix that. But I thought Neville Gallimore would give them more this year. And I look at Osa Digizua, fantastic pick, really good player. I'm sitting here myself saying, you know what, he should not be surpassing. You guys are, I was thinking they're going to be a tandem together. Right now, one is ahead of the other. So this will be, I am more than happy to see that they are holding people's feet to the fire, not just giving folks jobs.
I agree. I just wonder if Neville is more of a momentum-based talent, because you have guys like Sam Williams, for example, who can get you 2 sacks, a forced fumble recovery in only 12 reps, come in right off the bench and just get it done, go out, come back in, get it done again. I'm wondering if Neville Gallimore is one of those guys that you really have to let him build momentum, and then he starts to, be destructive in his game. And if that's the case, he's in a rotation where you might not get that with the Cowboys, because you got Chauncey Ghost and you got Oso Digizua. Quinn Bohanna's definitely going to get his reps. So Tristan Hill. So guys, the Cowboys try to figure out that interior line rotation. If Neville is in fact a guy who requires more to get going, he might have to learn how to do more with less.
And this is something that we hadn't really thought about at the beginning of the year. We were expecting more. Let's bring in Kevin Gray of 105.3 The Fan. First off, brother, it's good to see you.
Absolutely.
Good to see you.
Welcome back, brother.
Johnathan Hankins, when you heard about the trade, what were your thoughts?
My first thought was, well, the Cowboys are actually engaging in activity that makes them better as a football team, because this is not something we've seen over the last few years as far as making moves as we get close to the trade deadline. So I was actually happy to see that a move was made, but more importantly, addressing a need based on the way that this run defense has been performing so far this year. So the fact that they decided to look at some weaknesses on this team, actually go out and address it, you actually got him on the cheap as well, not having to give up much compensation-wise. I like the move, and it tells me that at least this team is thinking about that they have the opportunity now in a wide open NFC to go ahead and address the need, and they actually went out and did it.
The biggest need. I mean,
yes, 20th.
Arguably the only real handicap on an otherwise elite defense. So, I mean, you got to love it. We'll see how it pans out, but you can't say they didn't make the effort.
They tried to go out and and address the need.
They made the effort.
20th in the league against the run.
Going back to March, I'm just going to throw out some of the names for a team that doesn't do much in terms of trading and signing players from other teams. The Cowboys since March have added Dante Fowler, James Washington, Kevontae Turpin, Brett Maher, Anthony Barr, and Jason Peters before today. I mean, for them to kind of not really make a big emphasis there, those are some pretty key players. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting when you look back all the way back to March that you knew they weren't going to spend. I believe that they need to make some type of aggressive move at some point. Whether they do that or not is another thing. But with their calculated moves, they've panned out pretty well.
Should this be the only move they make, or should they make another move, Kevin?
I think right now they're okay, because wide receiver would be the only other position I would think that you might want to address when you get to the trade deadline. Now, who do you address with, and how much willing are you willing to give up in order to get maybe a DJ Moore or something like that out there, that's another question. But I think wide receiver would probably be the only other position I would consider needing to be addressed at this point.
I was actually kind of torn because we got this question in the mailbag, and I had to really sit back and think. And I was like, you know what? Prior to the Hankins trade, you're hard pressed to figure out where. If you look on the defensive side of the ball, you're stacked at safety. You know, you're stacked at linebacker, which is why Jabril Cox can't get on the field. Damone Clark should be activated here shortly. You're gonna have to figure that out. Come to the defensive front. There's kind of a hole there. Run defense. Okay, there you go. But you just made that trade. Now come to the offensive side of the ball. You're deep at tight end, assuming Schultz remains healthy or gets healthier. Offensive line has been playing much better. Tyler Smith, he's showing some things. Connor McGovern, he's not playing poorly enough to lose his job. He's actually showing some things as well. Terrence Steele has kind of come on strong. Zach Martin is Zach Martin. And Tyler Biadasz, as quiet as it's kept, he has played pretty well this season. So offensive line looks good. Running back, nothing to see there as long as Ezekiel Elliott remains available and healthy. Quarterback, you're all set. Cooper Rush showed you what he is at QB2. Where are you going? Wide receiver is the only thing you could go to, correct. But I'm not giving up assets for WR4. That's where I run into the brick wall. For WR4, I'm going to look at Jalen Tolbert and or Kevontae Turpin, and I'm going to say, one of you two guys, I need something from one of you two
negative.
guys. I know what I'm
Negative, sir.
What if they think that player is wide receiver 2 or 3, though?
Well, you also have James Washington coming back here soon.
Right,
so
but I'm just saying they might not know what he is.
Fair. I'm just saying they're going to want to see putting on the Jerry Jones and the Will McClain, the Stephen Jones cap. They're probably going to want to see what they can get from James Washington. They would have liked to have known this before the trade deadline, obviously, because if he's not going to pan out for whatever reason, you could make that move, arguably. But it's probably not going to happen that way, and they're just going to be optimistic that when James Washington comes, that at minimum he can contribute as a wide receiver 3/4 on those days that maybe Noah Brown or whomever isn't breaking out in your top 3 on that depth chart.
So, John, picking off of what you said, pick it for you. Go here first and then go to you, Kevin. What we talked about on the Players Lounge is CeeDee Lamb, high ankle sprain, hamstring, quad issue, has to miss games.
Yeah, you're in bad spot.
Which is why I said I'd be looking at the trade
You got to
deadline.
knock on wood, Newy. You got to knock on wood. Come on, you got to knock on the wood, Newy.
No, see, this is what I've learned in business school. Hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. So we are developing strategy here. So if CeeDee Lamb has to miss time, now I'm looking at Noah Brown, hoping James Washington's back, hoping Tolbert knows where to go and that Dak will actually throw it to. As I start to look at what my options would be.
Gallup becomes your number 1 in that option as well.
And I was going to say,
Dennis Houston?
Your boy. I was going to say, your boy. That's where my mind goes to as a general manager. What if?
Yeah, I don't think I'm trying to give up my first round pick.
No,
but I could be made interested real quick on something at wide receiver. That's the one position on this team that I think could afford an upgrade. It doesn't need to be Amari Cooper first round pick type investment. I don't think that they are anywhere close to what they were when they added him, but they could afford to add a wide receiver. But it's a difficult thing because you also don't want to add someone that messes up chemistry that you have with your current group, So it's going to be a tough decision to make. I don't know what calls they're getting. I don't know what calls they're making right now at that position. But I find it hard to believe that they're just completely 100% set at wide receiver right now.
Yeah, because that would scare me if in that scenario where Gallup becomes the number 1 at that point. And we're talking about Washington possibly coming back. So everyone moves up a slot. Gallup goes to 1, Noah Brown goes to 2, Washington is your 3. That concerns me a little bit. And it's ironic you mentioned the fact that, not an Amari Cooper type. The Cowboys didn't necessarily have to be in this position if they didn't want to, but they decided to move off of Amari Cooper because for whatever reason they wanted to. So it's just interesting that we're at a position where we're talking about a need at wide receiver when you didn't have to have that be a need coming into the season if you chose not to be that way.
But the flip side of that, and Steven has been very adamant, and I think you were there you were there when we talked to Steven at Nobu. You were there too.
Yeah.
So they talked about how we let Cooper go, we put money in other places. So at this point in time, I'm fine.
I don't know about that.
No, I'm
If
saying.
you look back, I think you're better off keeping Cooper.
But I'm saying,
I agree. Personally,
I would have kept.
I know what he's talking. He's talking Cooper.
Right.
He's talking Cooper.
Yes.
Or Schultz and Gallup.
And so.
My receipts are out there for
So now it's now you got sunken costs, and so this is where you're at.
We're not doing hope, right?
We're not doing hope.
Okay.
So now we're doing hope. This is okay, guys. We made this decision. This is where we're at right now. If 88 is not here, if 13, and only they know where 13 is really at right now, is he getting better? Is he, what is he? Do we make some type of move? Do we look and see if there is someone out there? You said, we're not trying to do the Amari Cooper trade that we did before. We're not trying to do the Roy Williams trade. We're just trying to find a potential two who can add here.
Chase Claypool, maybe?
No, we're not.
Joey Galloway.
We're not using any names. No names of other players. I'm just saying.
It is just funny that it needs to be mentioned because we are talking about wide receiver. That is where this team has been the most aggressive over the last 2 decades. When you think of Joey Galloway, Roy Williams, Amari Cooper, there's no other.
Williams, the receiver.
There's no position that's close to that when it comes to them being aggressive. It's been wide receiver.
Wolf. The Amari Cooper trade was quite literally the antithesis of the Roy Williams wide receiver trade. Like, oh my God,
I would
the latter
definitely
was
say
such a bad situation.
Scouts all, the scouts all travel together. I mean, that's a family. Guys all know each other. I remember one time one of the best pregame meals I ever had was sitting with a bunch of scouts over Jerry World because they all know each other. Patch says Colts or Bills or whatnot anyway, and you just start to ask them questions about guys because they're all going the same place. I think whoever is scouting for the Cowboys should follow the Steelers scout. What receivers you looking at?
Yeah.
Where you guys going at?
Yeah, they do well.
They do well.
They do well.
Every team's got a.
They did. That's why they signed James Washington.
Ooh.
We about to take a break right now.
Oh, you didn't like what John did there, did you? You didn't like what he did there, did you?
Yeah, I gotta let that marinate.
John working. I see you, John. I see you over there working,
Kevin
man.
Gray, John McGray. I'm Newy Scruggs, DallasCowboys.com radio. I got nothing.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
What do you call a group of grown men and women with their faces painted silver and blue who get together every week to share a 3-hour-long ritual of jumping, singing, and toasting Miller Lite and 10-gallon hats while yelling, "How about them Cowboys?" You call it Miller Time in Dallas. Here's to the Cowboys. Here's to the original light beer. It's Miller Time. Celebrate responsibly. 2021 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
When you build, you start with the foundation. And home ownership is a foundation of a stable future. The Bank of America Community Home Ownership Commitment has helped over 34,000 people lay the groundwork so far, with up to $10,000 towards your down payment or 3% of the purchase price, whichever is less. The satisfaction of owning your own place can become a reality. Visit bankofamerica.com/homeowner to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America N.A. Equal Housing Lender. Credit and collateral is subject to approval. Restrictions apply. This is not a commitment to lend.
The season is finally here. For months, we've been gearing up to win. Now it's time for the team that performs on any field. United Ag and Turf. With John Deere zero turns for mowing, compact tractors for loading, mini excavators for digging, Gator utility vehicles for hauling, implements for grading, hay tools for baling. United Ag and Turf. For winning. The official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com for more.
Back to Media Mash.
Media Mash, here we go. Segment 2, Patrik Walker, DallasCowboys.com, Kevin Gray, 105.3 The Fan, John Machota of The Athletic. I'm merely Newy Scruggs to help facilitate the conversation. you hit me and stunned me with the 8-second count on the wide receiver. So it's
cut man.
Okay, I got my smelling salt. I'm ready to go here. All right, back to the wide receivers talk.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to add into that is obviously this is part of the reason we're also talking about this is because of Jalen Tolbert. And so yesterday I was thinking before I came on the podcast, I want to do some research on this just to see how far this goes back. So Jalen Tolbert, a 3rd-round pick, okay? So I was like, I'm just going to go first 3 rounds that the Cowboys have drafted a receiver. Let's see how far back we got to go until we get a receiver that hasn't done anything or didn't contribute year one. Right. So it's Jalen Tolbert, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Terrence Williams, Dez Bryant, Antonio Bryant. And that's 2002. And there's not another one in the top three until you get to 1996. Stepfret Williams. Are you familiar with his work?
No, was this 86? Number 86? Was he from Mississippi State or something like that?
He was from a small school. I can't remember which one it was. It was like a Northeast Louisiana type thing.
And okay, so guess what? Stay at them small schools, right?
Okay, and then before that, though,
is that the takeaway?
And then I decided I'll go back to Michael Irvin. So it goes 93 was Kevin Williams, 92 Jimmy Smith, 91 Alvin Harper, 90 Alexander Wright, and then 88 Michael Irvin. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because, let's be honest, when the Cowboys generally take a receiver in the top three, they usually hit.
Top 3 rounds. Yeah, Alexander Wright.
Yeah, top 3 rounds, sorry.
Was terrible. But that's a pretty good mark. And I guess the only thing I can take away from what you said is stay away from the small school guys, right?
I mean, it's too soon to try to write the book.
Yeah, no, for sure. And these are only guys I'm talking year one. I mean, Jimmy Smith is on this list, and Jimmy Smith, what he was year one with the Cowboys and what he ended up becoming are night and day. But I'm just saying, year one, I'm just saying, I bet you they were expecting, not I bet you, I know they were expecting more there. And if you have more there, we're probably not having this.
Yeah, we're not having this conversation.
Jimmy was really an afterthought. I'm so old. I was at the practices in Austin, and I remembered during a break, and they were Super Bowl champs. This Michael being Michael, and he basically is telling all the wide receivers, you guys aren't getting much.
88.
Me, him. Good luck. Right. Jimmy Smith was one of those guys just on the knee, just kind of listening. And Jimmy went on to have a fantastic career with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But they missed. So
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't remember Stepfret Williams. I think I had an old football card, but I couldn't tell you what he did actually on the field.
I'm old. Even having this conversation, I'm hard pressed to see. Okay, so the Cowboys, they give up the 6th rounder for Johnathan Hankins, and you make a great point. There's a such thing as overvaluing picks, but then at the same time, there's a such thing as far as having the thought process to think, okay, if we've done this, who might have we given up? Did we just give up a Mukwamu? Did we just give up a Donovan Wilson? And it's like, okay, we had to do it so that we can shore this up right now because our window is starting to shrink. But now you're saying, well, in having that thought process, how comfortable would they be in doing it again at any position, but this position we're talking about is wide receiver? Because you're going to have to – we're not talking about any big-name guy that's going to be a first, second, third rounder that you're giving up. It's going to be a late-round pick that typically would be designated a flyer. But, again, if they're thinking of it from the aspect of we might have just given away a Donovan Wilson – that's fine. We'll eat that for now.
Yeah.
But for a team that drafts and develops as well as they do, they're not looking at those late-round picks as flyers. So they might tighten the purse string after the Hankins acquisition.
Here's just a thought.
Yeah.
What about comp picks?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
They have lost a lot of players in the last couple of years, right? You've lost them. So could you say to yourself, we'll give up. Now, I saw it was a 7th round pick. It hadn't been official yet.
But 7th round in 2024.
Get that high comp for Cooper. Right?
Okay, so. Cooper Rush, size Cooper Rush size that big. So
Noah Brown. Got it. What do you want to say? Something on your mind, Newy?
I'm not gonna tell you what Clarence Hill was gonna say. You done made that man mad about Noah Brown and Dennis Houston. Okay, when you come up in our conversations, that's what comes up.
Man, Noah Brown season, baby.
Listen,
Noah
man,
Brown
that's
season.
That's what I'm saying. Noah Brown might, and I said he's laughing because last week on Media Mash, I said Noah might take the Cedric arc and end up in the process getting you a good comp pick. Oh, Clarence almost fell off the chair.
I'm laughing because it came up this morning. He's on the phone. Hey, Noah Brown ain't get no money.
And he also, if he was here, he would also add, we kid because we care. He's not doing it in a hateful way.
Is that how he would couch it?
He always says.
I mean, after all,
I want to get him a shirt that says it because he does. So.
Yeah.
After all, he did go to the anti-bullying
That's
seminar.
right. That's right.
But it's interesting though, to your point about the whole. Do they look at it through the lens of we gave up a Donovan Wilson, we gave up a Mukwamu? At some point, this team has to go for it, and now it appears that they're actually going for it, because if we keep this whole game of we're going to keep playing into the future, trading and thinking about the future, at some point you got to go for it and try to win a championship, or at least get yourself close enough in a position to try and do so. And it feels like this is a move, at least with addressing a line, the defensive line, you're doing that. And if you do with wide receiver, that's just another indication to me that you're finally actually going for something instead of thinking about and playing for the future, over and over again.
And if you just forget the AFC, if you just look at the NFC, if you're not going for it right now, when are you going for it?
Yeah,
that thing is wide open.
It's wide open.
Which is why I believe we could be seeing a wide receiver. If you just simply sit in the room and say, guys, if something happens to Lamb, where are we? That's
I'll knock for you.
If we don't believe hope is a strategy,
I'll knock for you.
Okay.
I mean,
you don't believe hope is a strategy.
There's some hired guns out there, just floating around, traveling around, just seeing what the landscape of the NFL looks like.
As is always the case.
Yeah,
as is always the case. There's some veterans out there that you could some mercenaries, so to speak, that you can bring in that situation
with enough time to bring someone in that they can be very acclimated by the time you're making your December run. So, to me, I would do it if I'm the Cowboys. And yes, you can have your maybe James Washington come. All that could be gravy. But I think about the insurance. You were in the insurance industry, weren't you?
Currently am in the insurance industry.
See,
Yeah.
See, I like insurance. I think
insurance is good.
Insurance is a good thing.
So you're looking for a guy, though, that would only be for this year. You're not looking for like an Amari situation where then now you got to pay the guy too. You're just looking for the rest of this season, short term.
Right. That, and then if if you're Gerald Wayne Jones, you're supposed to say, hey, look, I'm going to take a little bit of cost off your hands, which you're going to have some teams are great, save such and such dollars, fine, and they'll just take. But that's the thing why I can give you a low draft pick because I'm being ready to take on some salary here.
Right.
And you bring in a player. You are just bringing in insurance. And after what I've seen this year with the team, quarterback, your left tackle. I mean, yes, you've been able to weather some storms.
Yeah.
Let's get some insurance because we've seen some things.
Yeah.
What's the old like a good neighbor? State Farm is there, or Prudential get the rock. I mean,
you getting paid for that?
Right, Flows Progressive. I mean, whatever you got to do. I would just simply say, what you don't want to do is to have this great run you're on and think, we tried to save some dollars.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Right.
Yeah.
Do this. McCarthy loves to talk about his Packers team that won the Super Bowl at Jerry World. I remembered in that game, Donald Driver went out hurt. Woodson went out hurt. And I remember, and I can't remember it wasn't Jordy Nelson, but it was another white guy who came in at the receiver spot who Rodgers was targeting and was making some plays on. But they needed everything. They had Ryan Grant that year who was playing very well.
Right.
You always
Greg
remember.
Jennings was on that squad too.
You always remember your great fantasy football teams that don't win. I had Ryan Grant.
Ryan Grant was your guy.
I had Ryan Grant, low pick, but they kept going. I mean, he went through a lot of guys. But even in that game, he was losing guys. And Rodgers kept on, guys came and did their job. So that's my thing there. It's just, man, I'd hate to see this team, and, it's an NFC that, yes, it is a winnable NFC, and you think to yourself, man, we tried to hold on to a 5 or a 4, and we could have got player X over here.
Yeah, I think that's what the best teams do who understand where they are in the moment. We talked about, what the Rams did last year, the acquisitions that they made that helped them get over the top. They acquire Odell Beckham Jr. My man's on his way to Super Bowl MVP before he gets hurt. Like, these are what the best teams in the league do to find a way to get themselves in that position. And the Cowboys are right there right now based on what they were able to do, weather the storm of Cooper Rush. Now you got a chance to go for it. So figure out the best way to still stay within your plan of draft and develop, but at the same time, find a way to go for it. Because as John said, if you don't go for it now, when will you go for it based on what the landscape of the NFC is right now?
There's another way to look at it, even if you're looking at it from the same view of that I put out there. What if we just gave away Mukwamu? Okay, well, contrarily, what if you just gave away John Ridgeway?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, I mean, that's, some motivation to say, okay, go ahead, do it. Send the 5th. Because, I mean, if it's accomplished, tradable anyway, and, there you go.
Patrick's a big baseball fan. Last year, the Braves, middle of the year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, let's go.
You were not thinking the Atlanta Braves would be lifting up any type of trophy.
Let's go.
And boom, here they are. Middle of the year.
Go get you a Jorge Soler.
All I saw was people complaining,
Right.
and nobody complained like Philly fans. All I saw was people trying to hang Joe Girardi with the Phillies. You couldn't have told me this team was going to fire this man and they would end up in the World Series. So in sports, sometimes you just don't know. I didn't think the Rams were going to make the Super Bowl last year.
They go get Von Miller, then they go get Odell Beckham Jr.
But they did. And so
Yeah.
if you're the Cowboy front office and you're
So
watching
you're saying
this
they
team,
need to go get Odell Beckham Jr.?
I said on the last show, that's a dude you do not go get. How many dudes coming off ACLs do we need to see around here?
You hope,
that was
you
my
hope
main
one of them
thing.
hits.
I'm saying,
Hope's not going to be my strategy on that one. I think we've got one. We got one. Let's see where it goes. But
I might put some hope into that one, though.
No, but I mean, he's making a good point. You go if you're close, or if you need a turnaround, or whatever the case may be. Maybe you go and get a Jorge Soler or Eddie Rosario or.
All right, Patrick. We hear.
I mean, he put it out there.
Braves championship.
He put it out there. So listen. I'm sorry the Rangers aren't. But
I'm a Yankee fan, so I don't even know what you're talking about.
I wouldn't say that out loud, especially
Too
next
late.
to the Tiger.
Yeah. That's
Yankees.
bad. So who's the Von Miller? Who do they need to go get?
Von Miller. I said they need last year. You go get Von Miller.
So close.
Von Miller said, "Please come get me too."
So
But don't
do that, Newy. Let's not even.
Bitter me is gone. All right, let's take a break. Come back with Patrik Walker, Kevin Great, John Machota. I'm Newy Scruggs. This is the Media Mash on DallasCowboys.com.
The season is finally here. For months, we've been gearing up to win. Now it's time for the team that performs on any field. United Ag and Turf. With John Deere zero turns for mowing, compact tractors for loading, mini excavators for digging, Gator utility vehicles for hauling, implements for grading, hay tools for baling. United Ag and Turf, for winning. The official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com for more.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
This sweet! Did you get to work on time?
Yeah, but I just realized it's Sunday.
Little Sweet says head on home. Dr. Pepper's on its way. So sweet, unique. Baby, there's nothing better. I bet you've probably done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper. Did you invest your nest egg in an NFT?
Yeah, and I don't even know what that is.
It's a non-fungible token. Everyone's done something that deserves a Dr. Pepper.
When you build, you start with the foundation. And home ownership is a foundation of a stable future. The Bank of America Community Homeownership Commitment has helped over 34,000 people lay the groundwork so far, with up to $10,000 towards your down payment or 3% of the purchase price, whichever is less. The satisfaction of owning your own place can become a reality. Visit bankofamerica.com/homeowner to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America NA, Equal Housing Lender. Credit and collateral is subject to approval. Restrictions apply. This is not a commitment to lend.
Back to Media Mash.
That's right. Last segment.
Well, what are you doing over there?
He's doing this all season long.
Russell can't say it anymore, but I can.
Oh, okay.
He shut that down on one of his last press conferences.
Oh, boy.
I'm not going to do that. Let's ride. Saw a report that said Bradley Chubb may get traded. I mean, so it's trade season. So you just read your social media. There's things that are out there, and there's teams right now that are not where they need to be. So we'll see what happens. Cowboys make a trade. They get Johnathan Hankins. Do you think that's because we saw what the Bears did last night?
I think that obviously this is a conversation that didn't start the day after the Bears did what they did on Monday Night Football, rushing for almost 250 yards.
They went for 241 last night.
Right. I mean, I believe that absolutely. I believe that was the thing that helped convince the Cowboys to go ahead and pull the trigger. But these, how these things go. These are conversations that have been going on for days, maybe even weeks. Cowboys have kind of been putting out a feeler, soft conversations, maybe this, maybe that. You put an offer out, they counter offer, you counter the counter offer, et cetera, et cetera. And I do think it got to the point where the Cowboys were like, okay, well, hold, please. Let's see what happens with the Bears. And then the Bears rack up over 240 yards. They pick up the phone and say, you know what? Done.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, Jerry was talking after the game, after the third break-off. You know, there's the main break-off, there's another break-off.
The final one, right.
After the third one, he said that. I mean, he's like, he was well aware. Everybody in the league knew that Christian McCaffrey basically was being shopped around. They didn't have any interest in it, but you knew that obviously teams were making calls and things. Did you want Christian McCaffrey? You made a face there. I don't know. I was wondering if you were interested there.
No,
for that compensation, you interested?
No, but it's amazing that those two teams are going to have no picks.
Yeah.
Between in the NFC, the NFC West. I mean, between the Rams and the 49ers. Why are you scouting?
Yeah.
You just scout.
I mean, but
just
again,
go get other guys.
But they're going for
that speaks to going for it, though. That's exactly what that speaks to.
Watching Jimmy G, I don't know if it matters. I mean,
that's the part everybody forgot about, that he still plays quarterback.
But I think he would have been on board if this team didn't have Ezekiel Elliott or Tony Pollard, and that was we talk about wide receiver for the Cowboys, but if it was running back they were missing for where this team is right now, I don't think he would have hated that much. I don't think they would have necessarily given up that much draft capital, especially all in one draft to get him. But I don't think he would have hated that. That is a move that, hey, we're going for it.
My problem with McCaffrey, he doesn't play. He's just missing a lot.
That's why.
That's what you're banking on.
I would have had a
San
problem with
Francisco,
it because of availability.
Right. So,
you just don't know how many games you're getting out of this guy, and
that's fair.
For that money. I mean, all the complaining people have is about Ezekiel Elliott. The guy's there on Sunday.
You're right.
Right. And that's been a part. And while people are giving Matt Rule the pass, part of the problem is this guy took a job and Run CMC is no longer Run CMC. He's just not there. When he's there, he can help, but he just hasn't been there enough.
I wonder how you take a nasty shot to the knee like Zeke did, and then after that, you score 2 touchdowns and leap over people.
Leap over human beings.
Hurdling over guys,
It's a strange thing. Because I was talking, me and a few other reporters were talking to Zeke at his locker last week, and he was just talking about like the workout regimen and how it's different from college because you have this longer season. You're trying to it's not as much of the heavy lifting as it's more of, I'm just trying to keep myself in good shape going forward. And we were just, other reporters making jokes about how, we don't work out. We're eating like crap and stuff like that. And he said that even with him, he's got to be careful about stuff. Like when he eats certain things, he'll be feeling it the next day. It doesn't look like it, but I don't know. There's just some people. I always felt this way about Des Bryant. That Des Bryant in his prime, he could have 3 meals a day could have been all Burger King and he would have been fine. I understand that metabolism will catch up with you sometime, but there's just some human beings that are almost like superhuman,
They're elite athletes.
Right.
Yeah. Elite athletes can get away with some things like that. So I'll ask you guys this because somebody, I can't remember, who was on the phone with me today. They said, is Ezekiel Elliott going to be with the Cowboys next year? Like, you think they're going to pay him? Are they going to reduce his salary, cut him? And I just said, first off, Pollard's a free agent. Mm-hmm. What are you going to pay Tony Pollard? He's like, yeah, Tony Pollard can't pass block. I said, so you're not giving him frontline money. I said, so Tony is a player with limited ability. He's good, but he's going to be limited in the pass game. So I don't know if anybody's going to make him one. I said, but if you get rid of Ezekiel Elliott and you lose Tony Pollard, what do you have? I said,
a very high draft pick.
Right.
I said, I could see Ezekiel Elliott coming back. Do they change the contract somewhat? Maybe. I said, but I can see Zeke back. Jerry likes him. That was just my take. So I want to bring it here, just bring it to the table. What do you guys think?
I definitely don't think both will be back. So they're going to have to make some type of decision there. And it'll probably come down to whatever they think is easier to replace. And then obviously, like you said about, probably asking for a pay cut or something on Zeke's end. And I could see him saying, yeah, I'm all set. I'm not doing that. So there's just a lot of things that have to come into play here, And the way we feel about it and talk about it right now could be way different a month from now. So I expect one of them to be gone, and I expect the Cowboys to use a mid-round pick. I'm not saying first or second round, but I expect them to use like a mid-round pick on a running back next year.
Or go ahead, Casey.
Because I think Pollard's the one that's going to be gone. Because if you go down that strategy, you keep Zeke around for another year or two. If you believe in the draft and develop strategy, you'll go use a second, third round pick on a running back, develop the guy behind him, and next thing you know, he takes over for Zeke, 2-3 years from now. But you still got to think about CeeDee Lamb's contract extension. Trayvon Diggs going to be up for an extension. Those guys are going to be getting paid too. So financially, now you got to think about who you're going to pay and who you're going to keep versus your salary cap going into the next couple of years. Because then the year after that, Micah's going to be up for a contract.
At some point, you're going to be making Micah Parsons the highest paid defensive player in the game. Yeah. That's going to cost you a lot of money.
Exactly.
My personal opinion is, and it is a complex conversation because the tandem has such a great chemistry. And not just on the field, but Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott are genuinely have like a brotherhood kind of thing going on. So I think in that aspect, and I never want to speak on another man's pocket and never want to put my hand in there, but I will say it this way. I wouldn't be shocked if to keep Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott was willing to take a little bit less to spread the money over to Tony. But then here's the question, and this is a question that's going to be posed to Tony as well, as far as on his inner circle, the conversations he and his family need to have, is do you want to be a number one back somewhere? Right? Because if he wants to be a number one back somewhere, see, that's a different type of conversation because arguably he is capable of doing that somewhere else, whatever the case may be.
Or just being paid like a number one back.
Or just being paid like a number one back. So it's a level conversation, but, gun to my head, I believe Zeke is going to be back. And then the Cowboys would lean on someone. They want to lean on Rico Dowdle, but he's not been able to remain healthy the past couple seasons. But Malik Davis is already flashing as a rookie. You got Ollison on practice squad that they're developing. So you have those guys, and then you add another draft pick to that to kind of, allow you to flesh things out behind and with Ezekiel Elliott over the next couple of years. But however you spin it, I do think that Pollard, gun to my head, would be the one out in this scenario.
Oh, and let me just add into this. When I say right now things can change, they're 5-2 right now.
Right.
This team could win 12, 13 games. Get knocked out in the first round. Because I maintain Amari Cooper's still here if that team last year went to the NFC Championship game. It's easier to move on and change things around when you have a very disappointing finish to the season. So the way we feel right now and then the way after it all unfolds, tell me what they do in the playoffs and I can give you a better a better example of what I think will happen.
Sports is fluid.
Yeah.
It's fluid.
Very.
But at the same time, I'll say to you what I held back because what I said to my friend. Jerry has his favorites.
Oh, and Zeke is one.
Zeke is one of them, for sure.
Okay?
For sure.
Yeah. And I said, I thought Tank Lawrence.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, I thought Tank
Malik
Lawrence.
Hooker loves Malik Hooker.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I said,
don't do it.
I said, that is a quote from Jerry Jones, sir. That is a quote from Jerry. Ask Clarence Hill.
We were all there.
Let me check my phone.
We were all there. Go on.
Well, yeah.
How much time we got left? How much time we got?
I'm gonna blow right past that one.
We got about 30 seconds.
Blow past that.
But we know that I thought Tank's days may have been gone last year. But we saw they brought him back. He's a Jerry favorite.
Jerry stepped in the final hours to bring him back.
People have to remember that thing about Ezekiel. No matter how you feel about him, the man who writes the checks has an affinity for the player. And for those of us who cover this team on a consistent basis, understand this. There's a lot to his game that the average football fan does not take into account.
Fact.
That he blocks, that he is there to do all the work behind the scenes. He's a very positive person in the locker room.
Team player, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff
has matured in a major way.
Matters. And coaches like guys that they can depend on. In a roster of 53 dudes, you're going to have a couple dudes you can't depend on. Right. Knowing that you've got my lead running back, I can count on that guy.
Yep.
That matters. So we'll see how it all – you're right, John. It's fluid.
It is.
It's fluid.
It is.
But when I had the conversation, I told the guy, I would expect to see 21 back here. I don't know what the money, but I expect to see 21 back.
Yep.
And until they can replace 21, I don't think Jerry would make a move. If he had someone in-house, he'd do it. It's almost like Romo. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't just go replace Romo. He saw, I have a replacement. That was how it went there. Jerry still kind of has his favorites.
To that point, the last player or the most recent player that he had such a strong affinity for, like he does for Zeke and some of the handful that we mentioned, and the Knights of the Round Table kind of voted to move on, Dez Bryant. You saw the consequence of moving on from that. Because that wide receiver by committee, it didn't work, and then almost offering Sammy Watkins $16 million a year. And the butterfly effect was you had to give up a first-round pick for Amari Cooper, and then years later you move on from Amari Cooper because you're like, this isn't the guy. So I say all that to say, if you're Jerry Jones, that should embolden you that much more, most likely to say, you know what, last time I moved on from a guy that I really, really liked, I had to pay some penalties for that. Maybe he doesn't make that mistake again with Ezekiel.
Just for devil's advocate over here, Jerry did love Randy Gregory, still loves
Oh,
Randy
absolutely.
Gregory. So that's one
Was
where
ready to pay
it does
him,
get to
too.
a level.
Yeah.
It can get to a level where, and it's got to be a high level, but it can get to a level where he's like, and then that's a little bit deeper. That's a little bit deeper. But that's a little bit deeper.
There's some emotions in that one on both sides.
Jerry to this, Jerry's, because I don't want to say Jerry loved Randy Gregory. Jerry still loves Randy Gregory.
still
so
Where's Randy Gregory's agent? Look.
Well, we're not. I was going to get into that.
See.
I think
there you go.
There's heartbreak on both sides of that equation,
And
there you go.
And Jerry came out on the good end of that end. So thank goodness.
Shouts out to Sam Williams, Dorrance Armstrong. They're going crazy.
They were correct.
My man with nuts and 12 snaps on Sunday.
All right, Kevin Gray, good to see you.
You too.
All right, we can bring Tolo shirts for everybody else too. Tell Gavin Spittle, empty the vault.
What's up, Gav?
Empty the vault.
We'll talk offline.
Patrik Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Read John Machota in The Athletic. I'm Newy. That's a Media Mash. We appreciate you watching. It's right here on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!